I wasn't hiding, but I wasn't supposed to be seen. Not by her, not that night, and definitely not like this. 3 years. That's how long it had been since I disappeared. Since I walked out the door and vanished without a trace. I changed my number, deleted my socials, even switched states. I didn't leave a note. I didn't leave closure. I left emptiness. And I did it on purpose. Because that's what she left me with first. So when she saw me again, at that glittering corporate event packed with executives and champagne, she didn't scream. She didn't run. She just stood there frozen, like her entire nervous system crashed. Then her mascara started melting, and her perfect little "I'm over him" mask shattered in front of everyone. But let me explain something before you feel sorry for her. She deserved every second of that collapse. Not because she cheated, although yeah, she did. Not because she lied to my face for months, which she also did. But because of the way she smiled the morning I left, like my pain was an inconvenience. Like the life we built was something she could just unsubscribe from. And here's the thing no one knows. The last time I saw her before that company event, I was standing behind a pillar in our living room, holding my breath, watching her laugh with the man she swore she hated. She thought I was already gone. She was celebrating my departure. Popcorn on the couch. Wine glasses clinking. My dog in his lap. You don't recover from that. Not when it's happening in your house, under your roof, while your toothbrush is still wet in the bathroom. So I ghosted. I didn't just leave. I made sure she couldn't follow the breadcrumbs. No divorce papers. No final text. Nothing. She told me once during a fight that I'd never survive without her. She wasn't wrong. The first few months felt like drowning. But now, I've got breath in my lungs and peace she'll never touch. Which brings me back to tonight. She wasn't supposed to be at that company gala. Neither was I. Technically, I was there supporting my startup partner who got nominated for some tech innovation award. I was sitting at table 14, drinking soda out of a wine glass, ignoring the crowd. Until I heard her laugh. That same infuriating laugh, the one I used to love. It echoed across the room, light and empty, just like it always was. And when I turned, there she was, arm hooked around some senior exec, face polished, wearing the dress she used to say was too much for me. And then her eyes caught mine. I didn't look away. She blinked like she was seeing a ghost. She stumbled. Her hand let go of the guy's arm. She tried to say something, and I could see the exact moment she remembered what she did. Not just the affair, not just the lies, but how she left me shattered and silent and didn't care. Not even a little. And now, I was the one thriving, confident, untouchable, watching her unravel in front of the exact people she once betrayed me for. But that was only the beginning. Because when she pulled herself together and tried to approach me, I smiled and whispered 2 words she never expected to hear. I didn't even plan on attending the event myself. It was supposed to be a quiet evening. My company was up for an innovation award, but I had no intention of walking across any stage or shaking hands with people who once saw me as nothing more than the guy married to her. I let my business partner handle all that. I just wanted to be in the background. Quiet. Invisible. But then I saw her name on the guest list. It was pure accident. The email was forwarded to me by our assistant. She thought I was still considering attending. I clicked the attachment out of boredom, scanned the names, and there it was. Lena McKinley. Not even hyphenated. She dropped my last name like it was some clearance item she didn't want to be seen with anymore. I stared at that name for a full minute, my coffee going cold in my hand. Something in me twisted. Not rage. Not sadness. Something else. Something hollow. Like the ghost of pain that never really left. I showed up at the event exactly 40 minutes after it started. Just enough time for everyone to settle in and get comfortable. I didn't wear anything flashy, just a dark gray suit, no tie, a neat beard that didn't exist back when she knew me. And I didn't sit with my team. I chose a table near the back. Alone. From there, I could see the entire room, including her. She looked good. Not going to lie. But not in the way I used to think. There was something forced in the way she held her smile. The way she kept scanning the room. Like she was hoping someone saw her, or maybe terrified that someone would. I knew when she saw me. She froze mid-laugh, eyes locking with mine like someone had knocked the air out of her. Her hand slowly lowered her champagne flute. Her face changed so fast it looked like it broke her inside. That moment was everything I didn't know I needed. But it didn't stop there. She tried to keep it together, but she couldn't. She whispered something to the man beside her, and stood up slowly like her knees might fail. She took 3 steps in my direction, then another, and then she stopped, right in the middle of the crowd, staring at me like I'd come back from the dead. Her face, God, I'll never forget her face. Like someone had turned the lights on inside a nightmare. And just when I thought she'd come over and say something, she broke. Tears, shaking hands, barely able to stay upright. She had to sit down. Her mascara ran. People noticed. Her date leaned in, confused. She couldn't speak, couldn't explain. Because how do you explain a ghost? Now here's what no one at that party knew. She thought I was gone. Not just physically, but erased. She thought I'd never show up again. Not in this city. Not in any room she could walk into. She built her image on that belief. She bet her reputation on it. And yet, there I was, calm, composed, not flinching. Because I wasn't there to confront her. No, I was there to remind her that her secret never stayed buried. That I knew everything. That she was never as clever as she thought. And when she saw the woman sitting beside me at that table, the one she never recognized, her whole world collapsed for real. But we'll get to that. That was only the second twist. The third one. It was already sitting in her inbox, unopened. And she had no idea what she was about to walk into next. People kept glancing over, whispering, nudging their colleagues. I could feel it. Her breakdown wasn't quiet, and it certainly wasn't subtle. But I didn't move. I just sat there, calmly sipping my drink, watching her try to compose herself through blurry lashes and shaky breaths, pretending she didn't just unravel in public. The man she was with kept asking her if she was okay. She nodded like a marionette, but her eyes kept bouncing between me and the woman next to me. Lydia. Let me be very clear about something. Lydia wasn't my girlfriend. She wasn't a rebound, or some trophy I brought to show off. She was something much more dangerous. She was my former lawyer. Specifically, the one I hired in secret 6 months before I disappeared. Lydia knew everything. Not just about the affair, but about the money, the forged document I never told Lena I found, the signature that wasn't mine on a joint investment withdrawal form, and the accidental transfer of $8,200 from our shared savings to an untraceable account under a name I'd never seen before, until I did a full background check on her lover. You see, this wasn't just a story of betrayal. It was fraud, financial manipulation, professional sabotage. She didn't just cheat on me. She set me up to be disposable, and she almost got away with it. But the problem with people like Lena is they think silence equals weakness. That if someone walks away without a fight, it means they didn't know what hit them. She thought I left because I was broken. But the truth is, I left to build the fire. And Lydia? She was the match. We'd been preparing this moment for years. Patiently, quietly. Everything had to be legal, clean, undeniable. I didn't want revenge that could backfire. I wanted consequences that would carry weight. And that night, that company gala, it wasn't just some random accident. It was the perfect setting. Because Lena wasn't just attending that night as someone's date. She was there for a promotion announcement. Her company had just merged with another firm, and she was about to be named regional HR director for the new partnership. Or so she thought. What she didn't know was that one of the board members on the acquiring company had received a very detailed, very anonymous packet 2 days earlier. Inside, documents, bank statements, voice recordings, and yes, a full timeline of her relationship with her boss, Grant, including footage from a private investigator hired months before I vanished. None of it was illegal. All of it was real. And Lydia had made sure it landed directly in the right hands. So when Lena finally pulled herself together and started walking toward me, trying to regain control of the moment, I leaned toward Lydia and said just loud enough for Lena to see my lips move. Now. Lydia stood up, calm, poised. She adjusted her blazer, smiled, and walked straight past Lena without a word. And I saw it. Lena's face changed again. Not confusion this time. Fear. Because she knew that face. She'd seen Lydia before. Once. Briefly. Years ago. In the lobby of a downtown office building. She asked me then, "Who's the woman you were with this morning?" I lied. I said she was a tax consultant. I lied because I wasn't ready. But now she knew. And that was only the beginning of what was about to happen. Because while Lena tried to piece it all together, she still hadn't checked her email. And inside her inbox was something that would tear down everything she thought she rebuilt. Something signed. Something final. And something she could never ignore again. I knew the exact moment she checked her phone. Her hand trembled as she reached into that sleek little purse she always used for corporate events. Same one I bought her on our 4th anniversary. Which, by the way, she forgot because she was stuck in a budget meeting that turned out to be a weekend trip with Grant. Yeah, that purse. She pulled out her phone and glanced down, trying to look casual, but I could see her pupils shift. Her lips parted slightly, and then she froze. It was the email. I had it sent at 8 p.m. sharp, timed perfectly with the gala's midpoint when the lights dimmed for the leadership presentation. But before the applause could begin, her screen lit up with the subject line, "Regarding your pending HR elevation. Urgent review requested." Formal. Cold. Just like the tone she always used when she was terminating people without warning. Except now, she was on the receiving end. The email had 3 attachments. The first was a summary report, compiled and notarized, of her internal misconduct during her time at the firm. The falsified work trips, the HR policy breaches, and the suspicious payment entries authorized during her so-called mentorship period with Grant. Lydia had tracked it all. Every suspicious approval. Every covered-up weekend. We didn't need to invent a scandal. We just revealed the one she left behind in plain sight. The second attachment was from me. It wasn't angry. No all caps, no threats. Just a signed affidavit detailing my withdrawal from all joint assets due to compromised trust and confirmed financial tampering. I'd moved my name off everything. Quietly. Legally. The new house she bought. Financed partially with my share of an account she'd forgotten to split. That wouldn't be her house much longer. And the third file. Oh, that one was a masterpiece. A video. It showed her. Not with Grant. With someone else. Someone she didn't know had a wife who had hired me. You see, when you disappear like I did, you learn things. You meet people. You compare wounds. And one day, a woman sits across from you at a bar and says, "Your wife? Lena? I think she's been seeing my husband." She showed me photos. I showed her timelines. We put together a mosaic of betrayal so tangled even Lena wouldn't recognize half the names involved. That video, it was footage of one of Lena's off-site training sessions. Only it wasn't training. It was her in a luxury suite in Chicago, wrapped in a robe, opening the door for a man who very clearly wasn't Grant. He said her name. She kissed him before the door even closed. The video was time-stamped, GPS tagged, and backed up in 3 cloud accounts. Lena saw the thumbnail in her inbox and didn't even open it. She locked her phone like it burned her hand. Then her face went pale, worse than before. She looked around the room like the walls were about to start talking. And then she turned and bolted out of the ballroom. She didn't even make it to the hallway. She collapsed by the glass doors leading out to the terrace. Someone called her name. Maybe the guy she came with. I didn't look. I just sat there, sipping my drink, finally feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Not revenge. Not triumph. Just clarity. Like I could finally see the end of a storm I never agreed to enter. What she didn't know yet was that the email wasn't just sent to her. Her company's ethics board received a copy. So did the merger partners. And so did the wife of the man in that video. This wasn't some petty act. This was exposure. Truth delivered cold. And still, I wasn't done. Because while she was trying to figure out how her world crumbled in under 10 minutes, I had one more piece to play. A conversation she'd never expect. A meeting arranged without her knowing. And a face from her past walking into that ballroom any minute now. She was still on the floor when he walked in. I saw him before she did. His suit was sharp, pressed, better than anything he used to wear back when she played him like a fool. He moved with that slow, deliberate confidence people get when they've been broken once, but not twice. He wasn't here for her, not really. He was here for what she represented, for what she took from him. And now, he was finally ready to look her in the eyes. His name was Darren Whitlow. 3 years ago, Lena torched his life with a single anonymous report to HR, alleging inappropriate advances during a team-building retreat. It was a lie. I know it was because Lena told me. She did it to protect her reputation when someone almost caught them sneaking back into the hotel together. Darren didn't even know he was being used until it was too late. The man lost his job, his savings, his marriage. Lena walked away untouched, whispering to me how sometimes sacrifices have to be made. I remember sitting in our kitchen while she explained it all over tea, like she hadn't just destroyed a man, like she was proud of how easy it had been. I didn't forget Darren. I found him last year. Took months. But when I did, I told him everything. The truth. I even showed him the hotel security logs and messages she sent me at the time, bragging about how she fixed it. At first, he didn't want to be involved. Too much time had passed, and he was finally putting his life back together. But then Lydia and I showed him the merger details. Lena wasn't just thriving, she was being rewarded, promoted, given more power. And Darren realized something. She never paid a price. Not a real one. So we invited him, not to confront her, but to exist in the same room, to let her feel the weight of what she did, to remember that not every ghost stays buried. And now, as she staggered to her feet, hair a mess, panic all over her face, she turned and saw him standing there, 10 feet away, watching her. She didn't say a word. Neither did he. But she flinched like she'd been punched. And that's when I knew this wasn't just a public breakdown. It was a reckoning. Her entire identity had been built on silence, on secrets, on other people swallowing the damage so she could shine. But that night, every one of those ghosts came back. The boardroom betrayal, the affair, the stolen money, the fabricated complaint, all of it unraveling in real time, in front of an audience she couldn't manipulate anymore. I stood up slowly, not to confront her, not to gloat, but because I'd finally seen enough. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't defending herself. She was just empty, hollowed out from the inside. Because when the lies go, so does the person built on them. I walked past her without a word, through the same doors she stumbled into. She didn't follow. Not this time. But as I reached the elevator, I got the notification I'd been waiting for. She'd opened the video. She watched it. And 10 minutes later, she made a call. Not to me. Not to her date. To her boss. The fallout was coming. And all I had to do now was watch. I thought there would be fireworks. Explosions. Some kind of desperate scene where she tried to spin the narrative, maybe even drag me into it like I was the villain in her downfall. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. The call to her boss only lasted 38 seconds. I know because Lydia timed it. She was still inside when it happened, leaning casually against the bar, watching the fallout begin like a conductor listening to the first notes of a symphony. After the call ended, Lena didn't scream. She didn't run. She didn't cry again. She just sat down, not at a table, on the floor, back against the cold marble wall near the bathroom hallway. Alone, her heels off, one hand gripping her forehead like it was holding her brain together. The image of power and prestige she'd built for years was slipping away, minute by minute, and she knew she didn't have the strength to chase it anymore. What she didn't know yet, what hadn't fully reached her, was that her world was unraveling faster than she could catch it. That packet Lydia sent? It had legs. A few hours earlier, it had made its way into the inbox of one of the corporate lawyers for the acquiring firm, a man whose wife, incidentally, had also once worked with Lena and had been mysteriously fired after complaining about inconsistent performance evaluations. Small world, right? Turns out, Lena had a long pattern of cleaning her path with silence and paperwork. Quiet firings. Manipulated reports. People who didn't play her game were shown the door, and she always walked away just before it got messy. Always with a promotion, a smile, a new title. But this time, she didn't get away. By morning, 2 internal investigations had already opened. I didn't need to be involved. That was the beauty of it. I had made my exit years ago, but the rot she left behind was still active, and once exposed, it didn't need me to keep spreading. It took on a life of its own. And the best part? I didn't break a single law. Every step was legal, every file traceable, every witness voluntary. It wasn't revenge, it was exposure. It wasn't about punishing her. It was about showing people who she really was so they could make their own decisions. But that night wasn't over yet. As I walked out into the cold air outside the hotel, I saw someone leaning against the wall near the valet stand. It was her date, the guy she came in with. He was on the phone, pacing, angry. At one point he said something like, "You didn't tell me he was your husband." Then quieter, "You didn't tell me that was how it ended." She'd lied to him, too. Of course she had. I didn't stop walking. Just past him as he turned away and looked down at the pavement like he regretted every moment of the evening. It occurred to me, then, how lonely she must have been these last 3 years. Not just because I left, but because she knew if the truth ever surfaced, there wouldn't be a single person left on her side. Her relationships were all transactions. Temporary. Disposable. I didn't take her down. She built the structure herself. I just removed the curtain. And now, all I had to do was wait for the last piece to fall. Because there was still one person who hadn't confronted her yet. Someone she hurt far more deeply than me. Someone who'd been silent all these years, but who had seen everything. And that person had just landed at the airport. She didn't know it, but the next day wouldn't start with coffee and damage control. It would start with the one conversation she'd spent 3 years trying to avoid. I didn't plan the timing. I didn't even know she was coming until an hour after I left the gala. Lydia called me from her car, voice unusually tense. "She's in the city," she said. "Landed 20 minutes ago. She's staying at the Beacon downtown." I asked her if it was confirmed, and Lydia didn't hesitate. "It's her." She booked under her maiden name, but we had eyes on the airline account the moment she was flagged. I leaned back in my seat, heart suddenly racing, even though I didn't fully understand why. But now I do. Because the person who just landed wasn't a lawyer, wasn't a colleague, wasn't a jilted lover. It was Lena's sister, Mallory. She had vanished years ago, long before I disappeared. They used to be close, inseparable, Lena always said. But something happened, something Lena never fully explained. All I knew was that they stopped talking, and any time I brought up Mallory's name, Lena's face would tighten. "We just grew apart," she told me once. That was the extent of it. And I believed her, like the idiot I was back then. But I should have known better. Lydia had found Mallory on accident, months ago, while following a paper trail that led us to Lena's college days. Mallory had been there from the beginning, long before the lies, before Lena learned how to twist people into assets and obstacles. When Lydia reached out to her, cautiously, she expected silence, or maybe hostility. Instead, Mallory wrote back 5 paragraphs within 10 minutes. And what she said changed everything. It turned out, Lena had a history. A long one. Manipulation. Disposability. Using people and walking away from the wreckage with dry eyes. Mallory had been one of her first casualties. A trust fund their parents set up had mysteriously disappeared during their final year of college. Lena blamed the bank. But Mallory had always suspected otherwise. What broke their relationship wasn't the money, though. It was what Lena did to Mallory's fiancé. I won't get into the details. It's not my story to tell. But it was the kind of betrayal that can't be repaired. And Mallory had been waiting, for years, for the moment to look her sister in the eye again and say, "You didn't win." So when Lydia told me she was in town, I knew this wasn't my finale anymore. It was Mallory's. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window in my apartment, watching the streetlights flicker, playing through the possibilities. Would Mallory confront her in private? Would Lena run? Would she try to spin another lie? The next morning, Lena didn't show up to work. Her office sent out a vague internal message citing personal medical leave. I knew better. The board had already seen the packet. The merger team had flagged her for an internal review. Her career was gone before sunrise. But the real moment was still coming. At exactly 10:17 a.m., Mallory walked into the building where Lena used to reign. Not loud, not dramatic, just calm, like a surgeon arriving before the cut. She checked in at reception, waited. When they told her Lena wasn't in, she smiled, thanked them, and walked right back out. And 2 minutes later, she called her directly. I wasn't on the call, but Lydia was. Mallory had patched her in. And what she said, God, I wish I could have recorded it. No yelling, no name calling, just truth, line by line, word by word. Mallory laid it all out. Not just what Lena did, but how she made people feel disposable. How she left emptiness in places where people once trusted her. How her whole life had become a carefully managed fiction. And now, every thread was unraveling. Lena didn't say a word for the first 5 minutes. Then finally, she whispered something. Why now? That's what she asked. And Mallory answered, because this is the first time in your life where you can't outrun what you've done. That call lasted exactly 13 minutes. When it ended, Lena didn't respond. She didn't defend herself. She hung up. And that was the moment I realized something I didn't expect. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't even about justice. It was about finally giving everyone she hurt the silence she always denied them. And now, for the first time in her life, she was the one being left on read. 3 years ago, I walked away from Lena with nothing but a backpack, a bank account she hadn't emptied yet, and a silence that felt more like a wound than a boundary. I didn't have a plan or a destination. Just pain and the dumb hope that if I stayed quiet long enough, Maybe I could find a version of myself that hadn't been ruined by her. I never imagined I'd actually heal. But standing there now, in the soft sunlight filtering through my new office window, hearing the soft laughter of a team that respected me, sipping coffee across from someone who knew my story and still saw value in me. God, it didn't just feel like healing. It felt like rebirth. Lena's name faded from headlines in under a week. Her resignation came quietly, tucked between two company memos. No public statement, no farewell email. Just a system-wide notification that her position was under transition. Her date from the gala unfollowed her days later. Darren's name was cleared internally with a formal apology and a quiet settlement. Mallory? She started sending me photos from her hiking trips again. We're not close, but we check in now. We exist in the same world again, untethered from her shadow. And me? I'm okay. Better than okay. The woman Lena saw sitting beside me that night, Lydia, she's still in my life. Not romantically, and not in the dramatic, storybook way some people might expect. But we built something different. Trust. Quiet trust. She gave me space when I needed it, told me the truth even when it hurt, and never once asked me to be anything but real. I moved into a smaller city, opened a small training consultancy. Nothing flashy, but it's mine. And every now and then, I meet clients who remind me of who I used to be, lost, unsure, waiting for permission to step into the next chapter. I tell them this. Sometimes the people who break you aren't the end of your story. They're just the reason you finally pick up the pen. Last week, I got an email. No subject line. No message. Just a photo. From Lena. She was standing at the edge of a lake somewhere. Alone. Face turned away. No smile. Just stillness. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because I finally understood something she never could. Peace doesn't always come with closure. Sometimes it comes with absence. With moving forward without needing to turn back. And for the first time in my entire adult life, I can say this without flinching. I'm free. And I never needed her apology to get there.